Hello, class. Today we're going to start chapter 4. And chapter 4 is a very long chapter and it takes a while to understand, but it's a good chapter to actually focus on because a lot of the future chapters are going to heavily take stuff from chapter 4. So in this chapter, what we're going to look is what factors affect the buyer's demand for goods, what factors affect the seller's supply of goods, and then we're going to see how the supply and demand together determine the price and quantity that is sold in the market. And then we're going to see how do changes in the factors that either affect demand or supply, how can they change the market price and quantity. So we're going to see a lot of these things, and we're going to basically, from there, we're going to try to understand what happens when um, demand changes or supply changes, and how does that affect price and quantity. And finally, we're going to see how the market allocate resources. So how does the market itself, if left to its working, how do they allocate what resources go to the production of what products? So this comes from chapter 1. We talked about what a market is. A market is a place where a buyer and a seller can meet. It doesn't have to be a physical location. It can be a virtual location like eBay or Amazon, where buyers and sellers can meet to see the products that are offered for sale and they can negotiate a price for trade. We're going to focus on a type of market called competitive market. A competitive market is where there are many buyers and sellers. There's so many buyers and sellers that no one person can influence the price. So let's say it's a market for buying bread. As a buyer, if I buy one loaf or five loaves or 10 loaves, it really doesn't affect the seller's decision because there's so many buyers and so many sellers that my choice of entering the market or leaving the market does not have an effect on the overall market. I'm too insignificant of a person in that market to have any effect. So in a perfectly competitive market, we have some assumptions. All goods are exactly the same. So the bread made by Baker Joe is the same as the bread made by Baker Sarah. There is really nothing very different in quality or in composition of bread. So we assume that all goods are exactly the same. Buyers and sellers are so numerous. There's so many buyers and sellers that not one buyer or seller can affect the price. So each person just takes the prices given. The buyer takes the prices given and then decides how much they will purchase. The seller takes the prices given and then decides how much they're going to sell. So this kind of behavior is known as a price-taking behavior. So the buyer is acting as a price taker, which means that they just take the prices given and then they decide how much to purchase. In this chapter, we assume that the markets are perfectly competitive. In later chapters, we're going to see different kinds of market structures, but for now, we're going to see how perfectly competitive markets can affect price and quantity. So from here, let's look at the buyer side of the market. So we're going to look at demand first. So first, we're going to look at a concept. It's called quantity demanded. The quantity demanded of a product is the amount that we buyers purchase at a given price that we are willing and we are able to purchase. Here's something very important. You have to be willing to purchase something and you have to be able to purchase something. So for example, I would like to purchase the newest Ferrari that's on sale. I'm willing to purchase it, but I probably am not able to purchase it right now. And let's say, for example, if a person is able to purchase something, they may not be willing to purchase it. So let's say a lot of people refrain from drinking alcohol. They don't like to drink alcohol for many different reasons, cultural reasons or religious reasons. So for them, they're able to purchase it. They may be able to purchase it, but they're just not willing to purchase it. So the quantity demanded here is for any good is the amount that I'm willing to purchase and I'm able to purchase at a given price. From here, we get a law, which is called the law of demand. And it's the claim that as price of a product goes up, as price increases, the quantity demanded of that good will decrease, holding everything else equal. Or if the price decreases, so the price falls, then the quantity demanded of the product will increase. So we tend to buy more of a product if the price will be falling. Our next concept is called the demand schedule. The demand schedule is basically a table that shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. So for example, let's consider a person named Helen. And we go to Helen and we ask, all right, Helen, if you have these prices offered to you, how many lattes would you purchase? So let's say we say, Helen, if we are giving away lattes for free, so basically lattes are $0 to you, how many lattes are you going to purchase? And Helen might say 16. So notice that it's not infinite, because of course there is a satiation point, and we believe that it's like even if we get something for free, after a point we will say, no, I don't want this anymore. Now, if we tell Helen that, all right, well, if we increase the price of lattes to $1, how many lattes are you going to purchase? And Helen, after thinking, says 14. And we keep on going like this. We offer different prices, and then finally, let's say we ask Helen, like, all right, Helen, if the price rises to $5, how many lattes are you going to purchase? And Helen says 6. And if price rises to $6, we say, Helen says, I purchase 4 lattes. Notice that Helen's preferences obey the law of demand. So as prices go up, the quantity of lattes she demands is decreasing. So that's something that happens to almost everyone. As the price of a product goes up, we tend to purchase less of it. Now, looking at a table like that, it's okay, but then it's easier for us to actually see it in a graph. So if we plot this graph, we look at the first point. When quantity demanded is 16, the price is 0. Now, if you notice this graph, the price is always going to be on the vertical axis, and the quantity is always going to be in the horizontal axis. In the case of production possibilities frontier, we said that we didn't care if what went onto the vertical axis, what went onto the horizontal axis. But in this case, we do care, and it is very important that we actually make sure that price is actually on the vertical axis, always, and quantity demanded of the product is always on the horizontal axis. So in this case, the price of latte is $0, then Helen is demanding 16 units of lattes. When price goes up to $1, the quantity demanded is 14. Okay, and as price goes up to $2, the quantity demanded is 12. Similarly, and so if we plot them all, if price goes up to $3, quantity demanded is 10. If it's 4, it goes up to 8, or down to 8, sorry. If it's 5, quantity demanded goes down to 6. And if it's $6, the quantity demanded falls to 4. And if we draw a line through all those points, we get the demand curve for Helen. So instead of looking at the demand schedule, it's easier to look at the demand curve. The demand curve is downward sloping, as we can see, and it does obey the law of demand. As price goes up, the quantity demanded of lattes for Helen goes down. Now this one that we just derived is for one person. It's just for Helen. Now we would like to see what happens to the demand. What if there are more people in the market? Helen is not just the only person in the market. So let's say that we add more people. So the quantity demanded in the market is the sum of quantity demanded of all the buyers at each price. So if we have 2 buyers, we are going to, for each price, we're going to add how much quantity each of the buyers demand, and then we're going to add them together. So let's say, besides Helen, now Ken joins the market. So we have 2 buyers now instead of 1. So we already know Helen's quantity demanded. So Helen was asked all these prices, and Helen gave these quantities as her the quantities that she would purchase at a given price. Now, if we add Ken to the market and we ask Ken the same question, say, all right, Ken, at $0, how many lattes are you going to purchase? and Ken says 8. And then we ask, okay, Ken, how many are you going to purchase for $1? If each latte was $1, Ken says 7, and so on. And so for $6, Ken is willing to purchase 2. Notice that Helen's and Ken's quantity demanded are different. This is because Helen and Ken may like lattes differently. Helen might like latte more than Ken. So for each price, so for $3, if price of latte was $3, Helen would purchase 10 cups of latte, but Ken would only purchase 5. Now, if we wanted to find the market quantity demand, so for each price, how much is the market going to demand? We just simply add Helen and Ken's quantity for each price. So when price is $0, the market quantity demand is 24, which is 16 plus 8. If price rises to 1, we say that the market quantity demanded is 21. When price rises to 2, it is 18, and so on. So we have individual demand schedules. When we sum up the quantity demanded of individuals, we get the market demand schedule. And then if we plot this in the graph, then we get a market demand curve. And this is what the market demand curve looks like. It's also downward sloping because if individual demand curves are downward sloping, when we add it, the market demand curve should also be downward sloping. So now this is great, so we can actually look at the market. Now, if I'm a seller, I can look at this and I know that for each price, what quantity is the whole market demanding? So how much is the market wanting? So for $1, if I price lattes to be $1, the market demands 21 units of lattes. So next we come to the idea of demand curve shifter. So that demand curve that we plotted right now, this is not a static concept. It can change. It can change every day, every week, every month, or even every second. It can change. So what we're going to see now is what can change that demand curve. What could shift the demand curve? So the demand curve shows, the one that we just plotted, shows how price affects quantity demanded, holding everything else the same. So if price and quantity demanded are given, then we know that the demand curve will be downward sloping. However, we said other things are being equal. The other things can change, and there are a lot of things that can change, and these are known as non-price determinants. Basically, these are the things that affect the buyer's preference for a product. For example, Helen may not want, or Ken may not like lattes as much, but if it's very cold, Ken might drink more lattes because just to keep himself warm. So there are other things that we can actually look into that can affect the demand for our product. So the things that can shift the demand curve, there are certain factors that can shift the demand curve, and we're going to look at them right now. One of them is the number of buyers. So of course we saw that if we increase the number of buyers, there's going to be more people wanting the same product at each and every price. So if I increase the number of buyers, it's going to shift the demand curve to the right. If I reduce the number of buyers, it's going to shift the demand curve to the left. So let's look at that actually before I move to the next slide. So what does that mean? If we draw it, let's see how my price is up here, always on the vertical axis, quantity is always on the horizontal axis. If this is my demand curve, and if there's an increase in the number of buyers, then the demand curve is going to shift to the right, because at each price, there's going to be more people wanting to buy the product. So at price, let's say 10, instead of, let's say, 50 units being bought and sold, I will have maybe 70 units being bought and sold, or maybe just 70 units being bought at this moment. So at price 10 now, because I have more buyers, for example, there are more people who entered the market. Let's say it's Elon and there's a small coffee shop here, if suddenly the population of Elon goes up by 10,000, there will be more people who want to buy coffee. So for each price, there's going to be more people willing and able to purchase coffee. So that's going to cause the demand curve to shift to the right to decline. On the other hand, if there's a decrease, so let's say instead of increase, if we say there's a decrease in the number of buyers, that will decrease the quantity demanded of each at each price, and it's going to shift the demand curve to the left. Sorry, my handwriting is very subpar. So what would that look if I draw the same thing? The price is up in the vertical axis, quantities in the horizontal axis. If this is my demand curve, a decrease in the number of buyers is going to cause the demand curve to shift to the left, like that. So increase in the demand in the number of buyers shifts demand curve to the right. Decrease in the number of buyers shifts the demand curve to the left. So this is one of the factors that can shift demand, is the number of buyers that are in the market. So if a city sees its population grow, there's going to be more people wanting to buy the product, any product. So that's going to cause demand to shift to the right. If a city sees the population decline, then it's going to cause demand curve to shift to the left. The next factor is income. Now there are two kinds of good that we say. Demand, there's one product which is called normal good. Normal goods are those goods that are positively related to income. So as your income goes up, you tend to demand more of that product. So those kind of products are things like restaurant meals. So as our income goes up, we tend to go out more for dinners or lunch. Okay, so restaurant meals are normal goods. So if everybody's income is going up, that can cause the demand for restaurant meals to increase. And so the demand curve for restaurant meals is going to shift to the right. On the other hand, there's another kind of product called inferior products. It's not because they're inferior in quality, but they're just called inferior because they're negatively related to income. So if income goes up, less is purchased. So for example, even within a product, we can have normal goods and inferior goods. So one example is beer. If income goes up, people tend to drink better quality beer, like Guinness or craft beer or beer that's actually better tasting. When income is lower, people tend to drink beer that are not so good, like Natural Light or Coors Light. So if income is falling in an area, we will tend to see demand for beers like Coors Light to increase and demand for Guinness to decrease. So if you have a normal good and demand is increasing, and your income is increasing in that area, then we will see increase in demand for the normal good. If income is falling, we will see decreases in the demand for normal good. And how does the curve shift? We just saw it exactly just like how it shifts for the number of buyers. It's just the same. So if we have so income is a factor that can shift demand, but it depends upon the type of good. One example is ramen noodles. Ramen noodles is considered to be an inferior product. So as income goes up, we tend to eat less ramen noodles. So demand of ramen noodles will shift to the left. If income decreases, we might want to eat more ramen noodles because it's cheaper. So demand for ramen noodles will shift to the right. The third kind is called price of related goods. Now, there are goods, some of the goods actually go together. So two goods are considered substitutes if change in price of one of them causes the other demand to change. Or when we think, it's basically substitutes are two goods that basically serve the same purpose, so you can use one or the other. So if you think about breakfast food, I mean, if you're just a diehard fan of cereal, you might just continue to eat cereal, but cereal, I mean, they serve the same purpose. Cereal and let's say bagel and cheese. Um, they're pretty much the same thing. I mean, you could eat bagels one day, or you could eat cereals one day. So, or another example could be pizza and hamburgers. So basically, they serve the same purpose. They're good for dinner. If you are like somebody who is just indifferent to both of them, basically you will choose to eat one or the other if the price of one is cheaper than the other, or if you're just feeling like you want to eat one or over the other. So let's say if price of pizza goes up, then if you're hungry and you want to buy something that just serves like just reduce your hunger, then if price of pizza goes up, then you will probably want to eat more of hamburgers because it's cheaper to actually buy a hamburger. You don't have to spend a lot of money to buy a hamburger, so it's just easier to buy. I mean, it's just cheaper to buy one. So if you're thinking like that, and if 100 other people are thinking like that, then that's going to cause the demand for hamburgers to shift to the right. We don't know what happened to the market of pizza, why price of pizza went up. We just know that price of pizza went up and pizza and hamburger basically serve the same purpose. So if price of pizza goes up, I'm going to eat more of hamburgers for dinner, and it's going to cause demand for hamburgers to shift to the right. Other examples are Coke and Pepsi. So if price of most people are indifferent between Coke and Pepsi, some are diehard fans of either Coke or Pepsi. So if price of Coke goes up, then people are going to drink more of Pepsi, and so demand for Pepsi is going to go up, or it's going to shift to the right. If price of Coke decreases, then people will be like, well, we can actually drink Coke instead of Pepsi because they basically serve the same purpose, so demand for Pepsi is going to shift to the left. Laptop and desktop computers are similar. If price of laptops go up, people might want to purchase desktops. If price of desktops go up, people might want to purchase more of laptops. And CDs and music downloads, same idea. If an MP3 file is cheaper, then people might want to demand more of or demand less of CDs, and vice versa. There's another kind of goods that are complements that basically go together. If you buy one, you need the other one. So in this case, if price of one goes up, the demand for the other one will go down. So for example, computers and software. If you buy a computer, you need software to run it. Now, if price of computers go up, you may not buy as many computers, or people may not buy as many computers, which means that you don't need a software. So I'm not just going to buy Microsoft Office just because. If I buy a new computer, that's when I will buy a new version of Microsoft Office. So if price of computers go up, people buy fewer computers, and so there is less need of a software, so demand for softwares will shift to the left. On the other hand, if price of computers decreases, if it's cheaper to buy a computer now people actually need softwares. So they're going to start purchasing more softwares, and so software demand is going to shift to the right. There are many other products like that, college tuition and textbooks. So if you're paying for college tuition, you will buy textbooks. So if there are more students entering college, then demand for textbooks is going to go up. You're not just going to buy textbooks just because you want to put them in your library. Bagels and cream cheese are like that. If price of bagels go up, people are not going to buy as many bagels, and so people won't just buy cream cheese just for itself. So demand for cream cheese is going to decrease. Same idea goes with eggs and bacon. These products go well together. So if price of one goes up, the demand for the other one will go down or will decrease. Taste is another factor that affects demand. Sometimes we want to purchase more of one product and less of the others. So back in the day, corduroys were in fashion, so everybody was buying corduroys, so demand for corduroys went up. Now, not so much in demand, or people don't want to buy that anymore, so demand for corduroy stuff is decreasing now. So, for example, in the 90s, Atkins diet was very popular. So, Atkins diet relies more on eating protein rich foods and less on carbs. So, because of that, since a lot of people were following Atkins diet, they had a taste for more proteins. And so that increased demand for eggs and other meat products, lean beef and everything. And it reduced demand for, let's say, bread or wheat products. So demand for eggs and meat shifted to the right, whereas demand for carb-rich foods like cake and bread shifted to the left. The last one is expectations. Expectations can, of course, affect consumers' buying decisions. For example, if I expect my income to rise, I will start spending money now as if my income will has already risen. So I will start going out to restaurants. So if you're, for example, let's say you're graduating in May and you have a job lined up in June, you will start. Well, if you want to start a job in June, and you won't get paid right away, you'll probably get paid at the end of June, your first paycheck, but you will start spending money in May as if you have income. So you will start looking for an apartment, you'll start buying furniture and other stuff, you will have to buy new clothes um, for your office and all those things. So it's going to cause demand for products to increase. So if other people expect their incomes to increase, their demands for all those other products is also going to go up. If the economy is doing bad and people don't expect that they will have their job next month or next in a couple of months, they will start saving money for the rainy day, and so their demand for some luxuries like changing their car or going on a vacation might decrease. So for those, demand will shift to the left. So let's look at the variables, a summary of what influences buyers. What are the non-price determinants? Price does not shift the demand curve. So nothing, if price goes up, we just move along the demand curve. We don't shift the demand curve. But every other factor that we talked about, number of buyers, income, price of related goods like complements or substitutes, the tastes of buyers, and the expectations of buyers, all those affect demand. So if you want to use some kind of acronym to remember it, that's fine. But all these things, so if I say if what happens if the number of buyers go up, what happens to demand? Well, demand will go up. If all your friends have an iPhone, what's going to happen for your demand for an iPhone? Well, you're probably going to buy an iPhone, so demand for iPhone is going to go up. If you expect the winter to be very cold, what's going to happen to demand for sweaters now? Demand for sweaters might go up now. So all of because of expectations. So these are the factors that affect demand. In the next video, we're going to see what are the factors that we're going to look at the seller side. So we're going to see what affects the seller's propensity to provide these products that we just talked about in the market. So we just looked at the buyer side. Next, we're going to look at the seller side.